Welcome to another edition of World Talks here on TVP World. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee, and please join me and my guests on this next interview. Serbia is seeing renewed civic pressure with student-led protests and a symbolic drive to collect signatures demanding early parliamentary elections. The movement follows months of anti-corruption demonstrations and growing concern over democratic backsliding, institutional accountability, and Serbia's stalled European path. Joining us today on TVP World to discuss these developments is Nataša Vučković, Director of the Center for Democracy Foundation, former MP, President of ALDA, and a regular columnist for Novi magazine. Hello and welcome to TVP World.
Good morning.
So we're looking at the recent student protests and their attempt to hold a snap parliamentary election, and they're saying that this is not about parties but about values. Who exactly should feel threatened by this message?
Well, this message shows that actually the students' protests, followed by mass civic protests all over the country, shows that there is a very big and large discontent with the present government. And it overcomes the weaknesses of the opposition parties that we have witnessed in the last couple of years. So this action of yesterday actually is a new step forward towards, I think, more political articulation of the students and civic movements, which started actually a year ago.
All right, do you see this as a sort of a double-edged sword, seeing that, of course, there's a value in going away from the partisan politics, but at the same time, in order to challenge Vučić, shouldn't there be also a kind of some political power to consolidate towards?
Well, there are two movements recently. First of all, there is the students' movement that actually has initiated the discussion about students' list that was going to be presented at the next hopefully early elections. That is one thing. So the other thing is actually how the opposition parties are going to react and how they're going to operate in these circumstances. It's very positive news from the European-oriented opposition parties is that they decided recently, a couple of weeks ago, just to act together, which is an optimistic and positive development from their side. So there is this actually a call for a non-partisan political movement, which is in a way justified and understandable in the context of the weaknesses of the opposition to Vučić's predominant political party. But at the same time, we have to know that elections are usually best led and conducted by the political parties, not only by when we present the candidates, but also in providing infrastructure for elections, for providing election monitors to prevent frauds and so on. So I think that actually those two movements will, in a way, come together in the next couple of months.
Right. So certainly still a lot to navigate there. Also curious about the collection of the signatures. For the past few months, we've seen the government pretty much just ignoring the demands of students. What political damage can it really do when it has no legal force behind it?
Well, the damage of these actions and of students and civic movements for Vučić certainly is very huge, because first this undermines his credibility and his support that was not contested for so many years. And now it is contested, and there is a growing number of citizens that lose their fear, and they decided to join the students and civic movements and even give their signatures for early elections. So why is it important? It is important that it pressures Vučić. At the same time, we have to know that Vučić said a couple of times in the last couple of weeks and months that there will be some elections, either in 2026 or 2027, which is actually the date of the next elections. So we shall see how he will react to this pressure. But the students will show with the number of signatures that they obtained yesterday how large is actually the support for early elections, but not only for early elections, but also students and civic movements, for the demands that they have actually elaborated and made public in the last year.
Right. Well, when young people like these students lose faith in institutions, is that already a democratic failure regardless of the election dates?
Yes, there is a big mistrust in institutions by young people, but also by older ones, because in the last couple of years we have seen and we have witnessed the weaknesses of the institutions, which were actually overwhelmed and completely controlled by the party that is in power. So what is important, however, we cannot undermine the importance of institutions, and the change shall come through elections and through institutions, because that's the only way the things work. And so young people, I think, month after month, manage to understand how important this is, and how many things you have to know in order to run for the elections, and to lead the electoral campaign, and to provide monitoring of elections, and how much knowledge is actually needed in order to do all this successfully. So it's a knowledge management which comes with the institutions, with the organizations, and with the infrastructures that organizations such as political parties can provide only, I think.
Right. You're personally a very strong advocate for reform within the country. You've said reforms are in citizens' interest. So what specific reforms do you think is being deliberately avoided by the power abing and should be changed instead?
Well, the initial demands and requests of the students from the end of 2024 and the beginning of 2024 actually represent those crucial demands which most of citizens want to see in Serbia. That's the rule of law. And the rule of law, when you say it may sound very abstract, but it actually means we don't want the corruption that we have now. We want that, the government fights corruption. We want the judiciary to be independent. We want it to be, free of any kind of executive branch of government influence. We want to have a very transparent system of public procurement, so as to enable free competition, and so to enable the transparency in providing construction and all other projects, because it actually jeopardizes us as citizens if we don't have this. So those are major political reforms that we want to see. We want to see a parliament that is functional, that controls the government. We want to see that there is a control over the public spending, over the state budget, and we also want security for all citizens, and that the law is equally applied to all citizens, to all groups, to all companies, and so on. So it demands real equality of citizens, of businesses, and so that the judiciary, the prosecution, actually is free of any kind of influence of the ruling political parties and groups that are in power. So those are major reforms that we want, and those are the major reasons why actually there is a slowdown, if not the slowdown in the European integration of Serbia in the process of accession.
Well, like I mentioned, there's a slowdown when it comes to European integration, but we also see Brussels keep urging patience as well. Do you think that European institutions are understanding the scale of this kind of public unrest?
I think that they see what is the scale of the public unrest, but for the European institutions and also for the European capitals, I think the crucial question is what is the alternative? What is the political alternative? Who's the person, or who are the persons that we are going to talk with on the other side? So that's the question that has not been replied yet, because European institutions do and contact those that are in power or that may be in power. So they want to see this. They want to see how this is going to be developed. by criticizing the failures of the present government strongly, I would say much stronger now than they used to do a year or 2 years ago, but at the same time want to see how this political process will develop in the country.
Right, and I think Vučić himself is
and
also...
they will certainly have some additional steps, like sending some kind of, fact-finding missions of the European Parliament, so on, to see how the things are going on in the country.
Right, and I was saying, Vučić himself seems to be clinging on to the language of stability as well. It argues that it matters more than street pressure. Do you think that this is another attempt at kind of painting himself as the only figure that can keep the country in a stable manner in order to relieve some of these pressure?
Well, certainly nobody would like to see some sorts of instability, and yes, Vučić presents himself as such, but the protests and civic movements as such already show certain extent of instability. So for Vučić, it is essential to show that it is still the card that the European can play on. At the same time, I think that he would be forced by the strength of the movement and by the increasing strength of the alternative side of the opposition to make some kind of compromises and show some kind of possible reconciliation with the other part of the society, because this is such a high polarized society that you don't know how actually the solutions have to be found.
All right, the high polarized society is indeed what we're observing here. Do you think if these election or early elections are refused, what's the next democratic outlet going to be? Do you see things escalating even further, or do you think that there will be some exhaustion at some point?
All crises, as the one that we have, normally have to be resolved through political dialogue. In which we are going to define and determine what are the ways out. So what are the solutions? What are the mechanisms to have free and fair elections? How to prevent any kind of fraud? How to establish some kind of dialogue between, the ruling coalition government and the opposition and civic forces that we have now, because that's crucial. Otherwise, the question is, even if we have elections, how the election results are going to be accepted by one or the other side. Mm-hmm. So it is very important that there is some kind of dialogue, at least at a minimum level, that would define the way out, because otherwise the polarization will continue.
Right, so it does seem like a very deeply ingrained structural issue that needs to be resolved. But in the meantime, thank you so much for your input and insight. Really appreciate it. And thanks for being with us on TVP World.
Thank you for inviting me.
And thank you for tuning into this edition of World Talks. But for more news, update, and commentary, please stay tuned to TVP World.